Everybody keeps asking me how I'm doing. Are you okay? How are things at your end? And the more people ask me this, the shorter and more concise my answer gets. And now I'm really good at answering it. I just say, good days, bad days. Good days, bad days. Good days, bad days. Good days, bad days. Stage 1, denial. The action of denying something. Now that is a really unhelpful definition. Doesn't really get us anywhere, but there is a key word that I'd say sums up that whole period for me. Action. Running, filming, working, weightlifting, couch surfing, partying, dining out, climbing, movies. My period of denial could have only been made possible by moving straight from one action to another action. It feels really weird to say, but I felt so good during that period. I ran over 130 miles in a month. I would turn up at the cinema and I'd just watch whatever was next. I lived out of a backpack and I pretended I was free. Can't remember hospital visits while you're running. No time to think about a breakup when you have a work deadline to meet. There's definitely no chance of thinking about everything you've lost. No chance of feeling anything if I'm moving so fast that my feelings can't actually keep up with me. And at the end of the day, and at the end of every day, when I couldn't mentally or physically squeeze anything else into the day, and when everything became sore, tired, and numb, I slept and waited for the alarm for it all to start again tomorrow. And I slept like a baby. There were no gaps. There were no silences, good or bad. Every minute of every day was accounted for. I was doing something. So even things I would normally do absent-mindedly or for pleasure became strictly regimented. So TV, food, games all became these slots of times to fill in gaps in the day. If people asked me how I was doing, I would lie. And I truly believed it. But I think I truly believed it because the lie wasn't really for them, it was for me. When you ask me if I'm okay,
Right?
could you tell if I'm lying?
Yes.
Yeah,
You,
I feel like I do.
you feel like you know if I'm lying.
Yeah.
Can you tell when I'm lying?
All the time.
And what is that like for you, the other side of that?
It's pretty horrifying.
So I gave you the key to my house.
So you know every time if I'm lying?
Most of the time.
I feel like no, lying is the wrong word. I
Okay.
feel like I know when you're not being truthful.
Okay. And
Because
then-
I don't think you're necessarily lying. I
Uh-huh.
just think there's not as much truth in your answer.
You're trying to sound like you're okay, but when you've known someone for too many years, then it's like the signs you know the difference between I'm okay and when actually under that you're very much not okay.
Yeah, in the moment helpless, but I feel like the odd times that I have seen it and it's really if like I've been like, no, that he's not okay, I have afterwards come up
Okay.
and asked you outright, I don't think you were being honest with me. I feel like I've done that on maybe 2 occasions.
So like it's pretty upsetting because, well, from a selfish perspective, it's like, why won't they tell me? Why won't they? Like, what am I doing wrong that they don't feel able to open up to me?
Well, can you remember when I've done that?
I can think of one time where you said, I know you're not okay, but I'm not going to tell you how I know.
And also upsetting because you're not okay, and I wanna help you, or be there for you, or do something, you know?
Yeah.
Do you know what? That's the thing, is like, if you said to me, how do you know? Couldn't tell you. I don't know. I think sometimes it's behind your eyes more than a huge giveaway. So that's really hard for me to put a finger on. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's literally just a look, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't truthful, because you're very good at putting on a brave face. You are. That's how I know when something's not right.
Stage 2. Anger. A strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. I'm not an angry person. I'd like to think I'm not an angry person. But whenever something went wrong, or my disciplined denial became unsustainable, I'd have these, like, uh-oh moments. And these moments were always retrospective, kind of like catching myself. Uh-oh. When I smashed a mug after shouting on the phone. Uh-oh. All of a sudden yelling at other cars in traffic. Uh-oh. When I smashed up a piece of furniture. I don't remember why I did that, so double uh-oh. But so committed was I to being in denial, to not feeling anything, to being numb to everything around me, that when these moments quickly went away, they didn't even bother me. What should have been obvious red flags would just get lost in the shuffle of everything I was not feeling. It's clear to me now that what I was actually suffering from was emotional leakage. And what was really happening was every time I pushed a thought down or I swallowed a feeling, the decision I was really making was to kind of have to deal with an outburst of pressure from all that building up over time. You know, now those feelings that I was swallowing down and pushing back, those feelings had become actions. And because of the pressure being released, those outbursts were loud, violent, and ugly. And every time they came with a huge helping of shame. None of these actions solved the problem, made me feel any better. None of them made me feel strong or in control. And none of them could be taken back.
So I only have one question.
Can I drink my tea at the same time?
Yes, of course you can.
Okay.
So by virtue of being siblings, we're pretty similar, like personality-wise. And we're definitely similar in more ways than we're not similar.
Yeah, for sure.
So my question to you is, how do you deal with anger as a feeling and a thing that happens?
It depends on the situation. I probably have a couple of different reactions that I would give. Like,
Okay.
like if I'm arguing with somebody like face to face, I'm gonna cry. Like there's absolutely no question about it. If I'm really angry, I'm gonna cry if I'm like arguing face to face with you. Whereas like I also quite quickly, like a logic takes over rather than emotion. So like let's say I've fallen out with friends over something, or like ex-boyfriends or whatever, I'm very much just like, I'm done. Like that switch just like goes off like I'm like, cool, yeah, no, I don't need to follow you on Instagram anymore. I'm not going to text you back. I'm not going to ask you to like reconcile this because I've thought through it. Now I'm probably thinking it's like logical, but there's probably definitely some emotions still like mixed in there. But being like, oh, I've thought through it, and if you want to act that way or you want to do that, then that's not something that matches with me. So I'm also like a cut you out kind of person, I think. Is that similar to what you would say?
Yeah, I think I would use different language to describe it, but what's really interesting is how similar that is.
Right. Oh, yeah, I definitely think that you and I both do that logic, like you logic your way out of it. And you're like, cool, yeah. I'm angry at you.
Well, there kind of comes a point where you sort of switch and it's like, oh, okay, like I'm not going to be ruled by that feeling.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that definitely has its advantages, but also recently I haven't found that an advantage, but that's just recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel really lucky that actually I've completely by accident, I totally got a handle on being angry. Like I'd love to say it was some kind of, something I like actively worked towards, but it wasn't. I just kind of seemed to get into a groove of whatever. So when it happens now, it's more of a surprise, I think.
It's the surprise that you get angry.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is what that used to feel like.
Okay.
But also, I'm not a cry. So I don't think if I'm arguing with someone, I don't cry if I'm angry.
Yeah.
But I know where that comes from, even though
it's just frustration.
Yeah, even though the outward action is different. Yeah. I know exactly what that feels like.
I move very quickly, and therefore like conversations that I'm in can move very quickly. But if the other person doesn't think that fast, which isn't a knock on them, people's brains just work in different ways, but like I learned to then slow down and be like, what am I annoyed? How do I communicate more about what I'm annoyed about? So I think that's something that like has fed into like, oh, how do I deal with anger? Maybe that's also fed into like, I'm leaning on that logical side of my brain that's very strong to say, okay, how do I express this in a way that, but you see what I mean? So that maybe leads to like less crying and less frustration.
And I think that's also true with like self-talk. So if I get annoyed or frustrated at myself, not being like, oh, you always do this, or you always, like actually approaching it in a more generous way, without denying the feeling.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's interesting that we deal with, it sounds like we deal with anger in similar ways, but also I think we're kind of lucky that anger isn't something that isn't a big problem for us.
Stage 3, bargaining. Negotiating the terms and conditions of a transition. Bargaining started at night, during what Roald Dahl described as witching hour. At the beginning of the BFG, the main character Sophie describes witching hour like this. The witching hour, somebody had once whispered to her, was a special moment in the middle of the night when every child and grown-up was in a deep, deep sleep, and all the dark things came out from hiding and had the world to themselves. In his story, Sophie meets a giant that's using a big trumpet to blow dreams into people's bedrooms. In my story, the trumpet blew in all the dark things. regrets, doubts, and fears. What if you had done more? If you'd only realized what was happening earlier? Things will never get better. You don't deserve to be happy. What's the point? What's the point in going on at all? This was when these feelings started. To begin with, they came late at night or early in the morning, either side of the witching hour. Then it was really random. First, my heart would start pounding in my ear. My vision would go blurry. There'd be this immense pressure that would build up in my chest and in my head. When all I wanted to do was take a deep breath, all I could find were shallow ones. The squeak in my ears. Then all the invisible things that were anchoring you to that moment in space and in time just let go all at once. And I'm lost. To me, though, none of this was a big deal. Nothing to worry about. Never thought about it after the fact. If it wasn't happening right now, then what was the point in worrying about it? I just had to keep going. Step number 4, depression. Feelings of severe dejection and despondency. This didn't happen with the flick of the switch. It was actually something really, really simple. I got sick. And I was lucky because it wasn't the big sickness that everyone's worried about. Right now it was just, I've been sick before. There's a lot of sickness going around. Happens to everyone, nothing to worry about. But then, one by one, all my crutches fell away. No more running, exercising. Can't see friends. Not sensible to go to work. Just the silence and the gaps. That I had exhausted myself trying to keep away. So the first time I knew I was depressed, I was on the phone. I had been sick for a few days. I had to call a friend and tell them I wasn't going to see them that weekend. And while I was speaking to them, I realized I couldn't hear what I was saying, even though it was me speaking. And that squeak started to come back. My whole body went to jelly. And the next thing I remember hearing was them saying, "Are you okay?" And I covered my mouth because I didn't want that answer to actually come out. And I realized I was crying. I had tears coming down my face, and I couldn't have told you for how long I was crying. And I think that was the first time I told somebody that I really wasn't okay. And then once those floodgates had opened, that feeling lasted for days.
It's 20 to 6. And this morning I've woken up just crying.
The only way I can describe it is it was like all the joy and the light had been sucked out of my life all at once. And everything made me tearful. And all those feelings that I'd been blocking and carrying around for weeks now, they were here. They were in front of me. Guilt, shame, anxiety, helplessness. There's no escaping it now. So when I realized that I was having a breakdown, I was on the phone to you. Do you know which phone call that was?
I do remember that one did worry me,
Mm.
that call, for sure. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to help. I felt pretty useless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really didn't know what to do
Oh,
after
man.
that call. Like, I wanted to help. I wanted to be of use. But
Were you?
it's always difficult to know what to do. You don't want to try and like push someone, do you?
Yeah.
Because then you might just make them feel worse. But you don't want to accommodate them too much because they're clearly not in the right state of mind.
Yeah.
You know, it felt like a disaster movie, but like happening psychologically, where like everything's falling apart. There's nothing you can do, and it's like, oh god. Yeah.
Step 5. Acceptance. The action of consenting to receiving or undertaking something offered. This one, strangely, is the hardest one to talk about because I'm not there yet. But there are things I'm doing that make me feel like it's possible. So it would seem inauthentic or not genuine to share those now. The thing that's worked best for me, the key so far, has been reframing the problem. So I think if a friend of mine felt and acted the way that you are, what would you do for them to make them feel better? And then do it for yourself. So, some mornings, if doing anything seemed like too much, I would advise someone to just take it step by step and one thing at a time. Get out of bed. Have something to eat. Take a shower. Brush your teeth. Get dressed. Take the first steps outside. I remind myself that you're strong enough to get through this until everything starts to become okay again. I would tell someone that you have that in you already. You are not alone. And once you start to be honest with people, those that truly love us remind us of all the things we can do to help somebody out. And in turn, you'll learn new things that you can do to be a good friend to you. You're not on your own. I would tell somebody that your feelings are valid as they are. Losing a loved one is devastating. Breakups really hurt. And moving sucks.